So we're streaming live, it says.
It's saying that it's doing it, but it hasn't actually told me on
Not
my
doing
screen that it's right yet.
Okay.
Okay, you're
There
set
we go.
now. You have a quorum and
Then
you're recording and streaming, so you're good.
all right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have all five counselors Golombeski, Mataronis, Moore, Wallach, and Mushin, and we have the required quorum. In addition, the solicitor and the town clerk and the administrator with us, and the chief of police. So we'll call this meeting to order for a single purpose, and that is to approve the proposal for the budget on those items for which the town council is responsible. You've been given from the clerk a series of warrant articles, which I would propose be the structure for how we go through this. In addition, I've given you a Rev 3 to the budget summary sheet, and I've used some highlighting to say if it's yellow, it's not ours to vote on, and you won't find it in the warrant that you've been given. And if it's green, it's a change from last time. Otherwise, the red figures in the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth column are the numbers we're approving. And
Bob, did you send that as an email? I apologize for cutting in. I've got a Rev 2. I don't have a Rev 3.
Okay, yeah, there are very slight changes, but yes, I did send it as an email. Yeah.
Here, I'm going to try my other screen. If
Okay.
I lose you, that's where I went.
Now, don't get lost. Yeah. So I think perhaps we would, with your concurrence, begin with the worded articles and discuss and approve those for inclusion in the town council contribution to the warrant. The first article is identical to the first article from last year, except that I've changed the words treasurer, tax collector to finance director in accordance with our charter. And other than that, the language is the same. I would suggest we might just work through these first five, which are identical to last year with those exceptions, and perhaps vote to adopt those five if you're so inclined. The second article is again the similar thing, finance director in place of treasurer, tax collector. The third article has the housing trust language that it had last year, and authorizes the housing trust to expend, with prior approval from the town council, monies, and then from the housing trust. What it said last year, to expend from the housing trust fund. And if you remember, we appropriated at the meeting $6,000, or acknowledged $6,000 would be used, and may do that again. I thought it would be generically correct to just say with prior approval from the council, as with any other expenditure. The fourth article remains the same, identical to last year. Authorize the reserve fund to receive up to $100,000 from the cell tower profits or revenue. And the next article, we have an property acquisition that we expect is getting close to completion, but may not be completed by the new fiscal year. So we'll ask that we continue negotiations for the purpose of acquiring property. So those five articles are holdovers, or not holdovers, but identical with those exceptions to what we said last year.
Motion to adopt.
I'll second.
So the motion is made and seconded by Councilors Mataronis and Golombeski to approve articles. We'll call them 1 through 5, the first five, which are the ones we just covered. Is there any discussion?
Just a question, is this more restriction on the housing trust than they've had in the past?
Not other than we didn't state approval of the council because, and I thought it was important because it's taking it from building, it's taking it from fees that we collect. So I think it's important that we participate, but except in that if it is amended the way it was last year, there could be an approval of a sum of money that the housing trust would use.
Okay.
Does that seem right to you, Andrew? Is that how it was discussed?
Yeah, I would say so. I think I think but we have not really had a chance to discuss this specific article as a housing trust yet,
Okay,
the way it's worded. So,
Yeah.
so I don't know exactly how the whole group feels about it.
okay,
I think it's a good start. And
okay,
I think it, it gives us a little more leeway as a housing trust.
right,
But I think it also gives us the opportunity to kind of get our legs underneath us with this funding source. So I like, I think the wording is good. I think we're going to discuss it at our housing trust meeting in March, but I think it's a good start.
okay. Any further discussion? We'll ask for a roll call vote on the motion. Counselor Golembeski,
Aye.
Mataronis,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Wallach,
Aye.
Mushin, aye. Thank you. The next one is new. It's new to this warrant. It's also a new proposal, as far as I'm aware, in terms of town. What it says is to authorize the town council to borrow monies not to exceed $2 million for use in the execution of the town's capital improvement plan, including but not limited to the following projects: restoration of town hall building exterior, provision of off-street parking in the commons, and repair replacement of the town's public works garage. The repayment of the borrowed funds, including principal and interest, shall not exceed $100,000 in fiscal year '22. Because of the unusual nature of this, in that it's not a stroke that has been proposed in my tenure, I don't know about in the past, but I asked the solicitor to review it. His words back to me were: carefully reviewed the proposed language for the article involving the town's capital improvement plan. I believe the language within the article is sufficient, accurate, and will accomplish the stated goal of providing legally sufficient notice. So I would anticipate that this particular stroke, first of all, we need to do some discussions with sources of income, sources of borrowing, specifically some banks that we have in mind to go and talk to. I've gotten from our bond counsel representative from the school bond at PFM an opinion that this is a common practice, and he would encourage it in that it is relatively inexpensive money to be able to do the kinds of things we're talking about. If you remember, the administrator briefed us on the town hall refurbishment being in the range of, we think, $750,000 to $1 million. And these other projects, which would take advantage of the property we have now immediately behind the basketball court to create off-street parking, and then in conjunction with that, to change out how you approach that area, specifically with respect to the former fire station, now maintenance barn. So I would anticipate we would hone this down. The budget committee might say, we think it ought to be smaller or bigger, well, not bigger, but smaller than that. So these not to exceed might shrink a bit. But the important fact is that we're not proposing any expenditure in excess of $100,000, which I think is a reasonable number given the way we've been approaching the capital plan. Questions?
It's very reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of this. I spoke with the administrator about it. I think it's work that we've had to do for a while, and I think it's going to greatly benefit the town going forward. My only question was, so this would be borrowing money from a private source, and it's not for a bond or anything, correct?
It's not for a bond. Yeah, that's correct. And it would save us, frankly, the inherent costs in bonding. We, as we did with the school, a bond would give us perhaps a little bit more flexibility in terms of participating with others in something rather much larger. But we didn't, the run up to this would be rather straightforward. We'd go to several banks and say, what can you do for us? We have some relationships already with a couple of them, and look for an attractive deal. and then borrow money. And we wouldn't need to, we could decide whether the conditions we'd come back and vote on whether we like the conditions or whether we'd like to shop around more or whatever. So it gives us that flexibility.
Yeah.
Would there be a motion to adopt this article for the?
So moved.
Okay.
second,
Motion made by Golembeski, second by Mataronis. Any further discussion? Last for a roll call vote on this motion. Counselor Golembeski,
Aye.
Mataronis,
aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Wallach,
Aye.
Mushin, aye. Thank you. The next set of articles, if you look at them, they are articles which we have in the past granted to various entities what we call a donation. And we don't at this moment, given the nature of all of the COVID things that have been happening, we don't have a request from each of these people. So what I'm proposing is, or what we are proposing, is that we match what it is they requested for those who have not asked us. And we are in our initial budget request, we match that. And then we tell these people, we need you to tell us what you're looking for in terms of funding. We think we know, but we don't have those answers yet. So that includes $10,000 to the Friends of the Wellness Center, $500 to the East Bay Community Action Program, who I think intended to provide us that request today.
They actually did get into us
Did get the
today.
request, so we have that one. The next is $750 to the Prevention Coalition. We have that request. $750 to the Eastern Rhode Island Conservation District. We do not yet have that request. And then $10,900 to the Stay at Home in Little Compton program. We do have that request. So we have 3 of these, and 2 of them we are awaiting, if I've got my numbers right here. Yeah. I would propose that with that in mind, we might just look at the entire budget, and then you can decide whether you'd like to, what you'd be doing is approving in advance of a request, $10,000 for the Wellness Center and $750 to the Eastern Rhode Island Conservation District. Or if you chose, another sum.
Those, as always, if no requests come forward, these amounts can just be zeroed out.
That's right. I mean, we would ask the budget committee, we would need by Monday to say, we would need by tonight to say, this is the number we want to put forward. We could make it conditional. We could say upon receipt, no later than March 1st of a request. That certainly would be a reasonable thing to say. And so yes, we could modify it afterward, or it could be our recommendation to the budget committee that in their review, they modify it because there's no need for the funds.
Well,
And go ahead.
So we're just approving these as a placeholder for these organizations, basically, the ones that have not submitted a request yet.
There's the two that I've identified that for which we would not have a request. And I would propose that we look at the entire budget package and then you decide to vote that before we single these out right now.
Okay, all right. And my other question is, say we approve the 10,000 for the Wellness Center and they come back tomorrow and say, well, we were going to request 11,000. Is that going to muck that up, or?
No, that would be, we would have limited them to saying we've approved a request of 10.
Okay.
And that's, I don't intend to convene another council meeting.
Okay,
to
all right.
accommodate that.
these can go down, but they can't go up.
Yeah.
That's one way of saying it.
The only reason I asked that is because I vaguely remember last year the Wellness Center came to us with that $10,000 amount because they were doing work on the building. And it was like a one-year increase.
One-time thing, so it may be.
But I don't want to limit, I don't want to limit their ability if that's,
Okay.
So
I would suggest then the rest of the articles and I'll point out 3 exceptions and our resolution to that. But What you see on that spreadsheet before you in the red column are the figures that you will also see in the warrant with 3 exceptions. And those exceptions are that I'm trying to find my first one. The police budget is understated by $1,757. So the police budget is not what I have at the top of page 3 of the budget summary, 1,027,828 or 820, is it? 820. Rather, it is 1,029,577, 1,029,577. And if you look at your package, you will see that on the second page, if you print it in the long, in the article that is immediately below the ones we just talked about, is the police budget. That police budget sum is the number I just said, 1,029,577. That's one difference. And that's the resolution. We're going with what you have in the warrant, not what I have on the budget summary spreadsheet. The second one is the difference of $1. And that's in the OPEB accounting. And it's simply because the math rounded one way or the other. So we're going to put $1 more in OPEB than I said in this spreadsheet. So we'll adopt what the warrant value is, $183,151 instead of $150. That OPEB, other than pension, employee benefits, is healthcare and retirement for those persons that are eligible for it. That's what that pays for. It's a portion of our healthcare account. And the third one is gone from my memory. Can somebody help me?
Wait a minute, I'm trying.
Did I have a third difference, Carol?
You did. Let me see. It was the insurance.
Oh, so, right, it's not an error. It's the fact,
Life insurance.
it's the fact that when you look at our transparency portal organized spreadsheet, which is the way the state requires us to report it, we have to report insurance as a single line item. You'll see that what we call insurance is on page 1, about halfway down the page under general government, of 125,000. The actual insurance request that we make of the people, and you'll find it this way in the warrant, is that 125,000 plus the $2,680 all the way at the very, very end of the spreadsheet under life insurance. So life insurance, which is a per person thing, so we account for it differently, gets rolled in with the other insurance, and that's the total insurance number. So hopefully when we look at this, at the warrant, and
That needs to be corrected. So I will correct it to 127,680.
Okay.
After FICA, after advisory boards. It's the 1, 2, third page toward second from the bottom.
So that won't be listed there anymore.
No, oh, actually, it's not the third page. My pages are off. It will be listed in the warrant, but it will, instead of saying, what you have in front of you says 127,856. And that's because there was a comment made at the last council meeting that it was 2,856 for that other life insurance, where it's actually 2,680. So your total of those two sums now is 127,680. And I will correct that particular stroke to that number.
okay. So the total insurance cost will be reduced from the number reflected in the warrant by a couple of $100.
Mhm.
So all that to say, what you see in the warrant, with the exception of the thing we just mentioned, the adjustment to the insurance stroke, what you see in the warrant is what we're voting to approve, subject to whatever conditions you want to place on the two petitioners from whom we've not heard yet. That for a grant from the town or a donation from the town.
So Bob, on the last page where it's changed to where it says to authorize the town finance director, that'll, on this one motion, that'll be included in it, correct?
Oh, good point. Yeah. So then at the end of the I'll call it the money strokes, there are two more strokes. And that one, the first of those is identical to last year. In fact, Carol, I think that needs to be the 2022 tax year, doesn't it? To order a tax to be levied on rateable property inhabitants for the 2022 tax year.
No, because it's what gets charged as of December 31st of 2021.
Okay. So that article then remains as it was last year, except it's a different year, a new year. And the other article, to your point, Councilor Mataronis, is adjusted to reflect it's no longer the treasurer. And so these are the two we adopt at the end once we've approved the budget. That's why that's why they've been moved to the end of the
Correct.
I did question, has anyone looked into whether or not the article for the auditing, does that need to remain town treasurer and tax collector, or do you want that changed to finance director?
Oh, up the page. Okay. For auditing the books of the town treasurer and tax. I think to be consistent with the change to the charter,
Mhm.
it should reflect the town finance director.
Okay, so then that will be amended. Okay,
So the motion that I would solicit would be to approve what's before us with, I think now, 4 adjustments. 2 of them are for donations. They will be conditional upon receiving a request. And to Councilor Mataronis's point, that request could be less than the figure we've cited, but couldn't be more. The third one is that the insurance stroke gets adjusted by the small amount that we pointed out. And the fourth one is that the that the treasurer tax collector be changed to finance director in the article near the end of the warrant. So the motion that I would seek would be to approve the budget as laid out in the proposed warrant articles with those 4 exceptions. Does that seem right to everyone?
Yeah,
That seems okay. I'll move that motion.
Second that.
So the motion's made by Councilor Mataronis, second by Councilor Wallach, to approve a motion that adopts these articles with those 4 exceptions. Solicitor, any comment on whether we're any issue here as far as you see?
I think he's frozen.
He's frozen.
no, he looked up.
Maybe he didn't hear us. Richard?
I
Hello.
heard you. It's fine. I'm sorry. Someone else was emailing me at the same time, but I think it's,
All right, counselors, everybody stop emailing the solicitor. I'm trying to speak with him. So no problem. Administrator, any issues?
You're right on target.
All right.
You did a
That then is the
terrific job.
motion. That is the motion before us. Are you ready to vote? We'll ask for a roll call vote. Councilor Golembeski,
Aye.
Councilor Mataronis,
Aye.
Councilor Moore,
Aye.
Councilor Wallach,
Aye.
Mushin, aye. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that satisfies our agenda for this evening. Is there anyone that has anything more to raise?
Bob, I'd just like to say, many years ago, I mean, as far as financing like the wellness center, I don't think that's a problem. But if people didn't put in a request for money, we didn't give them money. So, I think that's the way we should proceed with that. If they don't request it, they don't get it.
Okay,
Okay?
that'll be the intent. That should be not a problem. That's consistent with what we've done.
Very
Thank
good.
you. And with that, I will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your participation.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Back to us again.